You ever find your own diary inside a locked filing cabinet labeled psychotic delusions and realize your dad never saw you as a daughter, just a patient he was trying to cure? Then what are you going to do? I used to brag that my dad was the safest person alive. He was a therapist. Everyone in our town trusted him. Kids who ran away came back. Parents stopped divorcing after talking to him. He was everyone's fixer. But he never asked about my feelings. Not once. I thought maybe therapists just didn't bring their work home. That's what he told me when I cried at dinner and he walked away mid-sentence. He never raised his voice. He didn't have to. If you disobeyed, he'd write things in that little black notebook. Compulsive, avoidant, unstable. I once asked what he wrote about me. He said I wasn't ready to know. I started journaling secretly when I was 9. I'd write in the attic, hide the books in cereal boxes. I knew he'd disapprove. I just didn't know why. Not until the summer I turned 15 and the power went out for 2 days. He had to leave for a patient emergency. Forgot to lock the study. I wasn't even being nosy. I was looking for a flashlight. What I found was a drawer labeled family files. But we didn't have family files. But we didn't have family. Just me and him. Inside was a manila folder labeled Case 342, Possible Delusion. Female 15 presents as daughter. The photos attached were of me, but taken without my knowledge. Some from school. One from the bathroom mirror. Notes like, narrative fixation, believes I am her father. I dropped the file. My knees literally buckled. My name was written in quotes, in red, with a question mark. I thought it was a mistake until I saw the final sentence in his notes. Enforcement of false identity must be monitored. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. I just kept flipping through the pages like maybe one of them would say just kidding. But they didn't. They only got worse. Subject exhibits obsessive dependency. Identity not authentic. He wasn't writing about a stranger. He was writing about me like I was a fake human. Like I was some hallucination he was studying. There was even a treatment plan. Gradual detachment followed by clinical reassessment. He planned to erase me, slowly, strategically. And I thought I was his daughter this whole time. I thought he tucked me in to keep me safe. He was just observing the reaction to affection in a delusional subject. The file had photocopies of every journal I ever kept. Even the one I hid under the floorboard that creaked. Even the one I buried in the garden after our dog died. Every thought I had, he stole it. I checked the dates. He had files going back to when I was 4. I couldn't breathe. I started ripping the papers out and stuffing them into my backpack. Then I heard his car door slam outside. He was back early. I grabbed the folder, shoved it in my closet, and sprinted into bed. My hands were shaking so hard I bit my finger just to stop them. When he walked in, he didn't even ask how my day was. He just stared at me and said, "You're tired." That night I didn't sleep. I stayed up rereading the last page of that file over and over. If subject begins asking questions, initiate phase 2. The next morning, he gave me a smoothie. Said it was a new blend for cognitive focus. Within 15 minutes, my legs stopped responding. I collapsed near the sink. He didn't panic. He just nodded and wrote something in his notebook. I remember him dragging me to the couch and whispering, "Don't fight it. It's just time for clarity." And as I blacked out, I saw my school photo in the trash, with a red slash through my face. When I woke up, I wasn't in my room. I was on the floor of his office, wrapped in one of those weighted therapy blankets. My arms felt like rubber. My mouth tasted like chalk, but the worst part was what I saw on the wall. He'd set up a bulletin board covered in notes about me, childhood drawings labeled early delusions, report cards marked perceived achievement, photos with friends captioned imaginary reinforcement circle. He'd mapped out my entire personality like it was fake, like everything I did was some symptom. There was even a calendar counting down. The final day was circled in red and labeled phase 3. I tried to move but couldn't. That's when I noticed the camera. He was recording. I blinked and a robotic voice from the corner said, "Response noted." I wasn't a daughter anymore. I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was a case study. After what felt like hours, he walked in carrying soup. He sat beside me like nothing was wrong and said, "You've always wanted the truth. Now you're part of it." I asked him what phase 3 meant. He smiled like it was a gift. "Separation," he said. "You'll be free of the false identity soon. No more confusion. No more projection, just silence." Then he fed me a spoonful of soup and said, "You'll thank me later for the clarity." That night, he gave me a book, one he'd written himself, titled The Constructed Child. Reversing Inherited Delusion. The dedication said to 342, my longest subject. My final undoing. I knew I wouldn't survive phase 3, not mentally, maybe not physically. So I faked it. The next morning, I acted calm. I told him that therapy was working, that I remembered everything, that I accepted the truth. He looked at me like I finally passed some twisted exam. He said, "Good girl." And then he handed me a one-way bus ticket, a fake ID, and a folder of staged documents. He said, "Your new self starts today. There is no Eliza anymore." That's when I realized I never told him that name. My stomach dropped. I never told him the name Eliza, not even in the journals. Not online, not all loud. It was just a whisper in my mind, something I saw once in a half-burned photo when I was 8. He pretended not to notice his slip, but I did. I played along, took the ticket, said thank you, nodded like I was being freed. Then I went to the bathroom and flushed every pill he ever gave me down the toilet. The bus was scheduled for midnight. I had hours. I went straight to the attic, the one place he never touched. Buried inside a broken floorboard was an old music box. Inside it, a flash drive. I'd hidden it years ago, without knowing why. I plugged it into my school Chromebook and opened a folder labeled "Do Not Forget." Videos, dozens of them. Of me and a woman. She looked like me. Same mole on her cheek. Same crooked smile. She called me Ellie. I had memories of her. But Dad always said they were dreams. He said the woman died in a car crash when I was 3. He said I cried for weeks because I'd seen it happen. But the videos showed us singing together when I was 10. She wasn't dead. She was erased. And suddenly I remembered the woman who dropped me at school in 4th grade. The one I called Mom. The one he said was a hired nanny who ran off. He'd rewritten the entire script of my life. And I believed him because he never yelled. He never hit. He just convinced me I was sick, and that sickness made the world lie to me. At 11 p.m., I left the house. Didn't pack anything. Just the flash drive. I wasn't going to the bus station. I was going to the police. But halfway there, a van swerved in front of me, and someone pulled me inside. It was my dad. And behind him sat the same woman from the videos. She was pale, trembling, handcuffed, and she whispered one word that shattered everything. "Run!" I lunged for the door, but he was faster. He grabbed my arm and smiled, calm as ever, like this was just another session. "You're having another episode," he said. "That's not your mother episode," he said. "That's not your mother. That's your projection again." But she was crying. Real tears. And when I looked in her eyes, I didn't see madness. I saw guilt. The kind that comes from survival, not delusion. I screamed. He injected something into my neck. Everything blurred. When I woke up, I was in a hospital room. White walls. No windows. My wrists were strapped. A nurse came in and said, "Your father said you tried to hurt yourself again." My voice cracked when I said, "He's not my dad." She paused, just for a second, then said, "That's not what your file says." They kept me for 6 days. No visitors. No phone. Just therapy sessions and pills I hid under my tongue. On the 7th day, a different nurse came. She was new, younger. She whispered, "You're not crazy. I read the flash drive." She slipped me a phone in my lunch tray. I called the only number saved, Ellie's mom. She answered on the first ring and said, "Don't talk. Just listen. I'm getting you out tonight." At 2, the power cut out. Screams echoed down the hall. My door creaked open. The nurse. She led me through the emergency stairwell, barefoot, silent, shaking. I asked, "Where is he?" She said, "He's been arrested." The drive was enough. We exited into the rain. I saw her, my mother, waiting in a car, headlights off. She opened the door. I climbed in. We didn't speak. She just held my hand the whole ride and hummed the song from the video. The one I wasn't supposed to remember. I don't go by my old name now. I don't tell people what happened. I live in a small town where no one asks questions. But sometimes I still flinch when someone calls me delusional. Because once someone convinces you that your mind is broken, you never stop checking the mirror to make sure you're real.